Hey everybody, it's Mr. Cinema Junkie here with the long in works, I was going to say long awaited, but I don't think anybody's really been waiting for this one. Question and answer video. My second one called for a few questions, some new ones, and I got quite a few. Thank you everyone who participated. So let's get on with it, shall we? First up, from Rob Zombie is Awesome. He asked, if you could travel back to the cinema to see a film on the big screen, what decade would that be? That is a good question, because looking back at the old cinemas, the theaters changed over time. Before they became multiplexes, there were actual theaters with huge, gigantic screens. I grew up in such an era. In Chicago, we had a little area of theaters downtown. We had the Chicago Theater, State and Lake, Universal Theaters. I also went to theaters like the Logan, the Milford, and the Tiffin. These were real theaters, okay? Steel seats and kind of sleazy in some respects, but there were just movies that I didn't get to see because I was too young at the time to see them on the big screen. I would like to go back to like mid-70s to early 80s and see movies like Mother's Day on the big screen. A lot of the Grindhouse classics, maybe like Last House on Dead End Street. That would be cool. But then before that, I would love to see some of the old movies on the big screen, like Boys Town, Angels with Dirty Faces, White Heat. Those would be cool. Back when you could get like popcorn and a candy and a drink for a quarter and get change back. How neat is that, right? So I guess it would flip between either the 1930s and then all the way up to like mid-70s to the early 80s. Because I went to the movies quite a bit in the 70s and 80s, just didn't get to see all the ones I wanted to see because of my age. Go figure. Anyways, next question. Top 5 movies of all time. That is an excellent question because that's a lot to narrow down. I have a lot of different movies that I like for different reasons. And to pick only 5 of them is not the easiest thing in the world to do. So I had to write them down. I had to go through a list and I had to kind of write them down in no particular order and for very, very different reasons. The 5 movies that I came up with, top 5 of all time for me, are Phantasm, The Godfather, The Godfather Part 2, Full Metal Jacket, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Now, all of those rank very high on my list in different genres and for different reasons. So I grouped them all together just for the top 5 of all time. It's kind of hard to say that if I could only have 5 movies to watch forever, those would be the 5. It's really hard to say that. There's no comedy on that list, I'm realizing, and there are some good comedy movies out there that I like. But yeah, for the purposes of this question, I will say those are my top 5. Third question from Mr. Rob Zombie is Awesome. If you watched the whole High School Musical series, got drunk on Jack Daniels, took some LSD, ran outside, started beating the living shit out of people, vomiting on them, going to McDonald's to take the workers hostage for Big Macs, waking up in prison with badass Jesus, would you remember all that? Sir, I have to say I'm quite offended by the question. I would never watch High School Musical. Never. But if you need an answer, I think I'd remember most of it. The parts that mattered anyway. The Big Macs would probably have been all right there. A good memory. Thank you, sir. Thank you for asking. Okay, next up from the Flick Pick. You know he's always a riot. A hoot and a holler, this guy is. If you could go back in time and witness one event, what time and place would you go? That's a good one. Go back and witness one event. You know these things can't be narrowed down to one thing. You can't. Witness it. Like, I didn't have to be a part of it. I would just see it happening. Okay. Alright, I would narrow it down to 3. These are off the top of my head. I would want to have witnessed the JFK assassination. I would want to have witnessed the assassination of Lee Harvey Oswald afterwards. And I would want to see the eruption of the volcano that destroyed Pompeii. When I was younger, we went to the museum and we saw a display of the ruins of Pompeii, and I thought, wow, to live during that time, to see this impending doom coming at you and knowing there's no escape from it. What a horror that must have been for them. And being as young as I was when I saw it, they had statues of people laying on the ground, and they're posed like this. Now, I thought those were actual body casts of people that were found in the lava. I thought that's, hey, look, we found a body. You chisel around them, brush them off, and there you go. No, it was just a statue. There was nobody in there. But my imagination was wild when I was a kid. But yeah, those would be the 3. Pick any of those 3, and that's what I would want to have witnessed, to have been there and seen it happen. Next, he asked, if you could have one movie remade, what film would it be? Oh, okay. As far as it's a kind of a hot button topic with remakes, some people dig them and some people don't. If I would like to see one movie remade, as classic as this movie is, I would actually like to see Angels with Dirty Faces remade. But I don't want it twisted around to where it's like a hip-hop movie of a bunch of down-and-out urban kids who are washed-up rappers, and the whole thing is a hip-hop soundtrack. I don't want that. Keep it along the basis of the original. Just bring an all-new cast into it. Maybe a little grittier, maybe a little bloodier. Shoot for the R rating. But yeah, I would definitely want to see a remake of that movie. If I could pick one more, I'd say remake Godfather 3 and then pretend that original never existed. Remake it and do it right. Do homage to the first 2 parts and not that garbage that they came out with. That was such an insult to the series. I can't believe they actually released it. I can't believe Al Pacino was actually involved in it. So yeah, I would love to see that remade, and I'd also like to see the original Godfather 3 destroyed, every print of it just burned. And let's see, is there another one? Yes. What do you think is the worst big budget film of all time? Consider all aspects, acting, special effects, and plot. I could go easy and go with the crowd and say Waterworld, but I actually liked Waterworld. It wasn't great, but I thought it was a pretty cool movie. I thought it was actually pretty cool, even though it bombed pretty bad at the box office. So maybe it's not even a factor of whether it bombed, just what do I think is the worst in terms of it wasn't worth the money put into it. That again is another tie. That's another tie for me. And I'll put the first one out there just because. Hold on to your hats, people. Here it comes. Worst big budget movie, in my opinion, is Titanic. I thought the story was just silly and there was like, it was based in some fact, I guess, but just the whole thing was just so convoluted and silly. Wasn't worth the amount of money put into it. I didn't see anything too special about it. Not my kind of movie. Now this second one, I'm a fan of the series. To the heart, I'm a fan of the series. But I really saw this movie as a huge letdown, and I know they put a lot of money into it, and it really should have been better than it was. I don't know who they had this movie geared towards. I think they forgot that there were fans of this movie from years before, and they had all grown older. You know, I know they probably thought, oh, well, those kids have kids now, so we're going to cater to the kids. Don't forget us now. We're the ones that made that movie what it is. And that was episode 1 of Star Wars. I thought that it was just like a Sesame Street production with its puppets and its Muppet Baby versions of all the, like, Greedo and all those guys. It was just not a good movie. It wasn't good. Had potential to be so much better, and it just ridiculous. It was ridiculous. So those would be my 2 top flops as far as big budget movies. Thank you, John. Appreciate the questions. Look forward to more in the future. Steelbook Addiction asked, first off, how many Steelbooks do I have? I have a whopping 1 Steelbook movie and 1 Steelbook game. The Steelbook movie I have is the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the Steelbook game I have is Doom for the original Xbox. It's a little special edition deal that they had going on. So those are the only 2 Steelbooks in my entire collection. Seeing as how sturdy and reliable those things are and how cool they are, I'm looking into getting more, definitely. Which Steelbook would you love to have that you don't have? Wow. Well, after I found out that Boondock Saints was made into a Steelbook, I didn't know that it was. I'd love to have that, even though I just got it on Blu-ray. The Steelbook to it, I got to see it, and I thought it was pretty awesome. So, right off the bat, I'd have to say Boondock Saints in Steelbook. But there's so many. When I go to see your videos, I see all the Steelbooks that are there, and I'm just like amazed. Like that Inglourious Basterds Steelbook that you had as a prize. That was awesome. I'd like to have that as well. There's so many. Hell, if I could turn them all into Steelbooks, I would. Let's just put it that way. Do you think I should do a question and answer video? Of course you should. Of course. We all want to see your hands answer questions. Yes. By all means, do it. Let me know when you're going to do it. I'll send a few questions your way. And do you realize that you're awesome and you rock? Well, I have my doubts about that. Yeah. I don't see myself as a very rockin' person. Not anymore. Maybe 20 years ago I rocked. Now I just kind of roll. But I appreciate that. I really do. Thank you so much. And thank you for your questions. Always appreciated. Purple Book Fairy asked, what's your favorite childhood film? Again, a lot of these questions I'm getting have so many answers to them, and I feel like I'm cheating if I give more than one answer. My childhood was filled with different kinds of movies, especially during the holidays. Had a lot of the Peanuts cartoons and the holiday cartoons and stuff. But as far as like a full movie from my childhood that I enjoyed, okay, I'm going to say my favorite childhood movie of all time. I'm not even going to go with, oh, it's a tie for 3, or it's, these top 3 are my favorites and you pick from those. I'm going to give you one movie from my childhood that has stood the test of time and is still one of my favorite movies to this day. And that movie is a Spencer Tracy movie called Captain's Courageous. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Mickey Rooney's in it. Freddie Bartholomew, I believe, is in it. And Spencer Tracy. Very awesome movie. Just great old black and white film. Love it to death. And sorry, my dog is making noises over here. Who is your favorite author? Is this a trick question? Well, let's see. I only know one author. See, there he goes again. Noisy, I tell you. I only know one author semi-personally, and that's Jamie. And she's pretty rad. So my favorite author all around would have to be her. But I've never read anything she's written. Not yet, anyway. I plan to. I have all sorts of plans. I just looked on Amazon to find a couple of her books, and I found one or two of them. I think I'm going to get them. But overall, Stephen King has always been my favorite author as far as stuff that I've read of his. Dean Koontz was at one time kind of alright, but Stephen King is definitely awesome. Although I haven't read as much of his stuff as I would like to. I love his short story collection, like Different Seasons and Night Shift. Those are just incredible books. If I only had 2 Stephen King books in my collection, it would be those 2. I have a few of them, but those are the most awesome ones to me. So yeah, Stephen King would be my pick there. And what was your favorite subject in school? When I was growing up, my favorite subject in school was reading, or English, I should say, because I like to read. I read all the time when I was a kid. My goodness, will you settle down? Sit down. Sit. He's in heat. There, I told on you. I told everybody you're in heat, you freak. And then he sits down. I used to read all the time when I was a kid, so English or anything having pertained to reading was always my favorite. When I got into high school, I got a taste of tech theater and theater arts, and those became my favorite, just because I got to express myself a little bit more and get a little more creative. But overall, for the longest period of time, I would say English or anything pertaining to reading was my favorite in school, my favorite subject. Thank you so much, Purple Book Fairy, for your questions. Ryan, 1988, the ever cool, the ever awesome Ryan, 1988, sent me 2 questions. What are 3 films you would want to see in theaters that you haven't seen in theaters? It can be any year. Okay, that's kind of referring back to going back into the cinema, but this gives me an opportunity to say 3 other movies that I haven't seen. 3 movies I haven't seen in the theaters. Okay. Number 1 would be Roaring Twenties with James Cagney. Would love to see that on a big screen. I would like to see The Maltese Falcon with Humphrey Bogart on a big screen. And I would like to see the original Night of the Living Dead on a big screen. What do they all have in common? They're all black and white. And I've said it before, nobody appreciates a good black and white movie anymore. It's got to be 3D and jumping in your lap. I say rich, lustrous, black and white in a very cool movie theater with the old fold-down leather seats, popcorn and a soda, and you're set. Maybe some jujubes or jujubes, depending on how you like to pronounce that. Some dots, the chewy candies you got to pick out of your teeth later. And those movies, I think those would be pretty damn sweet. And the second question is Skittles or M&M's? You'd think that'd be an easy choice, wouldn't you? Because one is so much different than the other. Much like music, my candy depends on my moods and what I'm in the taste for. If I have a taste for something chocolatey, or do I have a taste for something fruity? M&M's has a wide variety of different ones that I like a lot. My top picks for M&M's are the pretzel, the almond, and the peanut butter. And for Skittles, I like the sour Skittles, I like the regular Skittles, of course, and I like the tropical Skittles. Overall, though, I would have to go with M&M's. They've been a favorite of mine since I was a small child, before Skittles were even thought of. So that's what I lean towards, M&M's. So thank you, Ryan1988, for your thought-provoking questions. I like when people make me think. I really do. I really have to weigh the options there a little bit. Stathis Quaid asks, what was your first horror movie? Easy question. Finally, an easy question. My very first horror movie was the movie It's Alive. I saw it when I was 3 years old at a drive-in. We had just left the hospital because we had one of those old-fashioned washing machines with the ringers on top that you put the clothes through, and it takes the clothes through and squeezes all the water out of it. You don't see stuff like that too much anymore. It was an electronic one. Well, I was about 3 years old at the time, and much smaller and skinnier than I am now. My arm was maybe about that thick, okay, compared to now, you know. But I was looking at that ringer going around and around, and there was a hair on it, and I was picking at the hair trying to get it, and my fingers got caught in the ringer and took my arm in all the way up to the elbow. And those things are designed so that if too much goes into it, it pops open. The emergency thing didn't even kick on. It just went right there and just grinded my arm. So all this got bruised up and smashed pretty good. I didn't break any bones, not even in my hand, but it got all bruised up and swollen and black and blue and purple and everything else. So we went to the hospital. They put my arm in a sling. I remember they gave me this pink stuff to drink. I don't know what it was. It might have been painkiller. It might have been aspirin. I don't know. But I remember it tasted really good. And then afterwards, my dad said, let's go to a movie. And we went to go see It's Alive. So that was my first horror movie. Didn't know what horror was. Didn't have any concept of it. So I wasn't a fan immediately. I was just kind of like, what's going on? Well, what's that? It was kind of weird to me. But I seen it again recently, and I thought it was pretty damn cool. But that was my first horror movie. It's Alive. Second question, what is the most annoying question you ever heard? The most annoying question I have ever heard, and please believe me when I say this, it's not because I have any resentment towards what or who I am. But when it comes to my weight, which I know has gotten off the scales a bit, when I get this question, why don't you just lose weight? Why don't you just lose weight? There's an idea. You know, I never thought about that. Here I was wondering, like, man, I can't breathe. You know, I can't sleep like a normal person. I have to sleep in a sitting up position practically. I gotta have a mask strapped to my face so I can breathe. I'm having an awful good time doing it too, but man, life would be so much easier if I could move around under my own power a little better than I am now. What could I possibly do? Lose weight. Oh, there you go. Why don't I just do that? Well, maybe it's a little easier said than done. Maybe I have to make a lot of adjustments and stuff, but that's neither here nor there, but that is a rather annoying question. The only other question that annoys me more than that is, for those of you who don't know, I'm of mixed nationalities. I'm half Mexican and half Anglo, with a bunch of other little things sprinkled in, but basically half and half, basically. And I tell people this sometimes, and they said, "You're Mexican?" "Yeah, I'm Mexican." "Oh, can you speak Spanish?" Which I find that as an annoying question, as if to say, if I can't speak Spanish, then I must be lying. I know plenty of people who can't speak Spanish who are Spanish. I know plenty of people who aren't Spanish or Mexican who can't speak a lick of Spanish, or speak it very well, I should say. And then I know people from here who can barely speak English. But I don't doubt that they're from America, or, you know what I mean? So I find that question a little bit annoying too. But I was going to mess with you and say, oh, the most annoying question I ever heard was, what's your favorite horror movie? Or your first horror movie? But nah. Seriously, those are the two most annoying questions ever. To me, anyway. 3. What do you think about YouTube dramas? Okay, no messing around now. YouTube drama, I feel, is unnecessary, pointless, but it's always going to be there. It's always going to pop off somewhere. It's usually unwarranted, but it's always going to jump off, and it's always going to be at the hands of somebody on the outside. More times than not, I shouldn't say always, but more times than not, it's always going to be somebody from the outside, and from the outside, I mean outside the community. Seldom is it from the inside, but it does happen. You're faced with a decision when something like that jumps off. You're faced with, do I tell this person something? Whereas you're feeding them. That's what trolls love to eat, is more drama. Trolls bring it, you feed into it, you feed them more by having a response. And then they get over on you that way. Or do you not say something, and then you're still stroking their ego by making them think that you were afraid to say something? It is definitely a no-win situation. The only way you really win in the long run is when you ignore them and they don't say another word. I have another channel, and somebody just out of nowhere posted on there, on my comments, man, you're a fat blob. Alright. I don't know where that came from or why, but it's there. And you know what? I didn't take it down. I didn't take it down. I left it there. Because, for one reason is because that channel is supposed to promote humor. And I often say, if you can't laugh at yourself, you can't laugh at anybody else. That's just a rule. So okay, you took your shot. That was okay. Not the best shot I've ever had, but you know, you tried. Congratulations. Like Mr. Han in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I'm going to leave this on the board for everyone to read, giving you full credit, of course. So there you have it. What do I think of them? I wish they would go away. I wish everybody would just be happy with one another. And, you know, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. That's a basic rule that my grandparents taught me, and it's a good rule to follow. If you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say anything. Simple. But you're always going to get people with this attitude that they want to drum up stuff, because usually a lot of people that drum up drama are bored, sad, lonely people who have nothing better to do. And they have the power of the internet to voice their unwanted, unwarranted opinions about people that they don't even know, just because it makes them feel better. Because all their lives, they were picked on and shunned by everybody else. So that's why they do that. And I think it's rather unnecessary. If you're talking about drama between people that we know, between, you know, friends of ours, and they're having a problem, my only thing about that is, guys, if you're going to have these back and forths between one another, My only recommendation is do it in private. Inbox each other. There's an inbox to send comments back and forth to each other. Because when you put it out there where everybody can see it, I mean, it just invites other people to add their opinions, and then it becomes ridiculous, and then it doesn't die out for a long time. It's like a wildfire. One little spark here, one little spark there. Before you know, you got a roaring fire, and the community is burning down to the ground. So I would just keep it off the public boards and keep it amongst yourselves until you figure it out, squash it, or just eliminate it altogether. That's all I have to say about the dramas. What? What is the difference between a duck? A duck and a what? Oh, okay. What is the difference between a duck? Blue. Because there are no screen doors on a submarine. Thank you, Mr. Stethosquade. Puckbond 007 EJ. He asked me top 3 films of 2010. Top 3 films of 2010. Wow. All right. In no particular order, I'm going to say Book of Eli, Daybreakers, and Kick-Ass. Kick-Ass was an awesome movie, and I can't wait for the sequel. I really can't. Daybreakers, towards the end it got a little, I don't know, a little off-kilter, but I thought it was an awesome vampire movie, a great concept for a vampire movie. Hey, nobody glittered and glowed in that one, so I was alright with that. And Book of Eli was just an awesome post-apocalyptic movie. I loved the concept of that movie and thought it was great all the way around. So those are my top 3 for 2010. What is your favorite food? What isn't my favorite food, man? I love food. Food is good. Steaks, fried chicken, different types of food. I like Polish food, German food, Mexican food, Italian food. But if it has to be one, say I had to live on it for a month, and I think that's a pretty long time to live on one kind of food, I would say pizza. Because you can have all sorts of different combinations of pizza. You can use all veggies, all meats, a combination of the two, 1 or 2 meats. You can do all sorts of different things. You can even change the cheeses and the sauces on it to make it something different all the time. Plus, all your food groups are represented there if you get it mixed up the right way. You got your grains, your breads, your fruit, your veggies, your calcium, dairy. It's all there in one slice, one heavenly little slice. If I have to live on pizza for a month, please let it be a Chicago deep dish. I love Chicago deep dish pizza. It's the best. It's the absolute best. So yeah, pizza would have to be the top of the list, top of the chain. I would have said wings, but there's only so much you can do with wings, and I would get really bored of those really fast. So I say pizza. What is your favorite Bond movie? Well, EJ, it's like this. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone who's less of a Bond fan than I am. I liked a few of the movies I've seen of his. I mean, of his, like it's one person. It's one of several people that played Bond. I know that. There were a few titles I've seen, and I couldn't even tell you which ones I've seen or what they were about, but I know at the time I enjoyed them. But there is one that stands out above them all, because to me, the best James Bond was Sean Connery. And because of that, and for one other reason, I'll tell you what it is real quick, is my favorite Bond movie would have to be You Only Live Twice. I believe that was the name of the title. And it's because it had ninjas in it. Yes, I'm a big ninja fanatic. I'm a kid of the 80s, and in the 80s, that's what I did. I watched a lot of ninja movies. So, you got James Bond, and there's ninjas in it. I'm there. I'm in. So, yeah, You Only Live Twice. That'll be my favorite Bond movie. Thank you, EJ, for your questions. Next up, we have Vanessa from the movie DVD pick. She says, First is, will you ever go to Universal Studio theme park with your family and videotape your favorite memory ride you ever enjoy? Okay, I would love to go to Universal Studio. That's kind of a goal of mine, is go to Universal Studio, Florida. Never been there. The only place I've been to in Florida is Walt Disney World and SeaWorld, and both of those were at the same time, and it's when I was 6. Would I videotape it? I'd definitely videotape my time there, but seeing as how it's Universal Studios, I don't know if they'd allow videotaping on any of the rides, since there's a lot of movie themes, and I'm sure a lot of it's copywritten. So I probably wouldn't be able to, but I would love to. I'd love to capture that kind of stuff on there. I'm not big on rides. I'm not a ride person. Roller coasters and stuff like that just are not my bag, man. I don't dig them at all. I like to observe. I like shows. I like themes, things I can see, concerts. If I'm going to ride something, it'll probably be like a monorail or something that kind of carries me from one place to another. I don't get on the fast spinning pukey rides. It's not my thing. But yeah, I'd love to check out Universal Studios. Definitely. Will you ever show your media room and your DVD collection bookshelf all together? Well, Vanessa, your wish is my command. There's my movie shelf. There's my media center. And here endeth the tour. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you, Vanessa, for your questions. Appreciate it. And the last person to enter questions is, and I know I'm going to mess up the name because I still haven't learned how to say it right, but Heavy Metal Rill, or Ryle. Which is it? Is it Rill or Ryle? R-I-L-L-E. Heavy Metal Rill. He asked, I'm going to save this question for last. I'm going to go to the next few. But he asked, any phobias? What creeps you and disturbs you the most, and what do you fear the most? Okay, I do have phobias. I'm claustrophobic. I can't stand small, confined places. If there's too many people in a room with me, I feel like my air is being taken away from me. I woke up one time and the blankets were wrapped around me in a way where I couldn't move my arms, and I had a freak out attack. I threw myself to the floor just to get out of the blankets, which sucked. Hit my head pretty hard too. That stems from when I was like 3 years old, 2 or 3, something like that. I got locked in the trunk of a car and I freaked out. And ever since then, I can't really be in close spaces. I don't know why, but it's weird. That's why I can't really watch movies where people are buried and stuff, or they're underground and trapped in something. It just weirds me out too much, man. It makes my skin crawl. And big cockroaches. It's not really a phobia. They just creep me the hell out. Anything bigger than a watermelon seed, and they call it a cockroach, it freaks me out. Florida is the only place that I know of where they try to be fancy about it and call them palmetto bugs. Palmetto bugs, my ass. Those are cockroaches, and big ones. They come into your house when it rains outside, and they don't leave you alone. In Texas, we had some that were the size of Snicker bars. They're like that big, brown, and they fly, and they sound like droning helicopters. And you hear that coming at you, man, you are in Creep City. So yes, that definitely creeps me out. What do I fear most? I have a fear of tornadoes. Tornadoes and uh, all-out nuclear war. Yeah. And plus all this talk about the solar activity that's going to fry the earth to a crisp. That's kind of fearing me out. That's kind of weirding me out too. My fear is built there too. So those are my 3 tops there for fear. The thing you can't stand the most that really bothers you every now and then. The thing I can't stand the most and bothers me every now and then would have to be people who get in line at the grocery store in front of me, and I always seem to find these people. But they get up there and they always have that one item that doesn't have a price, and I have to wait for them to find the price. A good 10 minutes. They come in, they get it, then they argue the price because they say it's the wrong one. No, but it said this up there. No, sir, wrong one. And then during all that time when they could have been filling out that stupid check, then they start filling it out. And who do I make this out to? Oh, let me start over. That stuff. Like nobody behind them has a life or wants to get the hell out of the store. We just love looking at your dumbass standing there not moving. That bothers me every once in a while because I don't go shopping all that much. If you could change the world, what would you change? Censorship. Censorship and the laws pertaining to censorship. I would change them, definitely. I don't think censorship... I think censorship is a form of control that people that I did not put in that position feel they can wave over me and tell me, oh, this is too much for you to see. They get to watch this stuff to judge whether I can watch it or not. And if they think it's too much for them, then obviously it's too much for me. It's like the mother who feels cold, so she wraps a sweater around her kid. I'm cold, so you must be cold. Maybe I'm not cold. Maybe the cold doesn't bother me. Maybe it feels good to me. So I would change that definitely because I think it's ridiculous. There's enough channels on TV where they can show that one channel that shows everything and anything and no limits, no nothing. And it would be up to us whether we watched it or not. And if you have children, then be a parent and watch what your children watch. Don't say, oh, my child watched 2 people doing it on TV and they're scarred for life and I'm going to sue somebody. Where were you? There's enough stuff out there that you can put channel blockers on there to keep them from watching stuff that you don't want them to watch. There is no excuse for it other than sheer laziness on your part. That or the fact that they're in the outside world and they're going to be exposed to things. You can't help that. But don't, because you want your kid to be a closet case and guarded from every little thing and not know how to operate in the real world, don't deny me my entertainment. I can handle it. I'm an adult. I don't need someone telling me what I can and cannot watch. So I would definitely change the censorship. Censorship should have gone out with the Nazis. I was going to save that question for last, but this question's even better, so let me go back to that other one. Is there a girl that you met years ago in your life and the experience of that meeting is forever etched into your mind, and no matter what, you can never forget it? You blew it with her and have never met her again, but you still can't forget her. That's a really deep, personal question, and I'm glad you asked it. There is only one girl that I've ever met that is etched into my mind that I blew it with and have never met that particular girl again. This is going to sound really weird, but it is my wife, Gina. Now, what do I mean by that? When I first met my wife, she was very lively, vivacious. She was very exciting. She was excited to be a part of me. And as things happen, sometimes you kind of lose that spark along the way, and it becomes business. Raise the kids, pay the bills. We get caught up in that stuff a little too easily. And somewhere along the line, we lose touch with one another. And you start thinking, hey, pay attention to me. And the other person's like, I'm too tired to pay attention to anybody right now. So over time, you start looking for other ways to, you look for other outlets to your wants and your needs, I guess. I have never cheated on my wife, per se, but I have talked to other people online in a most inappropriate manner. Basically just looking for a good ego boost on my part because I didn't feel I was getting it where I needed it, which was from my wife. It's no excuse. It's no excuse. And as time went on, she discovered this, and that's the part where I blew it. Because of that act on my part, she has found it very hard to trust me, and because of that, we repeat this cycle every couple of years. We start getting close, then I guess she remembers it, she feels hurt, she distances herself from me, I reach out to her, I try to bring her back, she doesn't want to have anything to do with me, back to the computer I go, she finds out later, starts it all over again. It's a really, it's just bad. It's a bad situation is what it is. And I'm seriously considering counseling, if for no other reason, to find out the root of my need to always feel needed. I'm an insecure person. I really am. I don't know if that shows or not, but I'm rather insecure. And it doesn't take much for me to get shaken to the core and feel like, oh my God, I'm worthless. So I either roll with that and remain feeling worthless, or I find my worth in other places. If I can't find it with the one I want to find it with, I find it somewhere else. But what I do not do is I do not leave my front door, and I do not go carry on extramarital affairs and have mistresses and things like that. That I do not do. I figured it was harmless. I figured nobody got hurt. There was no chance of me spreading any kind of weird disease to my wife or anything like that. I did think that through. I did take that under consideration, but it still didn't make it right. So yeah, that girl I met a long time ago is not the same girl that I'm married to now. I would love to have her back. I would do anything to have her back. But I don't know what I can do at this point. But we shall see. We shall see. Now, as far as other girls that I've known, sure, I've had crushes here and there. And since then, they've moved on and they've gotten wives, and that's great. I'm happy for them. But I don't feel like, man, I messed up. Man, I think things happen just the way they should have happened. And I just got to work on what's mine right now. So, thanks for that question. And for the last question, this is a good one. If you were to make your own movie and you could make it any way you want, there are no limits, how would you do it and what would be in it? There are no limits. Everything goes, So the only thing that limits you is your mind. Go crazy. I'm at the 49-minute mark. Let's see if I can squeeze this to a complete hour with 10 minutes to go. Turn down the lights and get cozy, because I'm about to take you on a little mind trip here. Anything, huh? I can go crazy? Here's a little warning before I continue. I'm going to say some vile crap here. There's kids in the room, or if you're offended in any way, please turn the video off now. Ready? Let us begin. The scene is the woods. There's a family of cannibals living there, and they have just taken a girl hostage from a campground. They have her tied to a rock, and you can see she is pregnant. The leader of the cannibal family mounts her and begins to do her viciously, causing her to miscarriage. She spills the contents of her guts out on the rock. He reaches down and pulls up he reaches in and pulls out the fetus. The blood attracts the family to the area, and they're all looking upon it. He takes the little fetus and stretches it over his erect cock like a condom and begins to jack off with it. He ejaculates with the sperm coming out of the nostrils, ears, eyes, and mouth of the fetus. His mate sees this, becomes insane, grabs his cock, sticks it in her mouth, and begins to blow him. This fetus has become a condom of sorts. She's blowing him, and in doing that, she tastes the blood from the fetus and bites. She rips off his dick by the root in her teeth, spits it out. When she sees what she's done, she becomes violent and upset, and she barfs and pukes right in the pile of afterbirth and placenta and blood, which brings the family to start feasting on the little bits and pieces of arm and dick and blood and afterbirth. Meanwhile, the dogs that they have there run up and start licking out the woman's vagina with all the little bits and pieces hanging out of her while she's laying there dying, bleeding to death. One of the elders sees the dog eating the vagina and reaches down and grabs it by the nape of his neck, wets his hand, and shoves his hand up the dog's ass, ripping its guts out and feasting on them. This insinuates a feeding frenzy from the cannibal family. All the kids and all the children run in and take turns eating pieces of the woman, of the fetus, who is now ripped in half with the cum all over it, and the cock, and the leader is laying there bleeding from his torn member, and a grandma with no teeth begins to suck his nub to get blood and nourishment out of his schlong, which is mixed with sperm and blood and pus and everything else. Two forest rangers happen upon the scene. They draw their flashlights and their guns. They say, "What's going on here? Who are you people?" The leader of the cannibal tribe snaps out of his coma. He drops to one knee, claps his hands, and says, "The aristocrats." Ah, that felt good. And thank you, sir, for your questions. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. And I hope I didn't offend too many people there. Have a good night, everybody, and thank you.